Vivian Caldwell's fingers hovered above the control console, sweat beading at her hairline. She glanced at the countdown on the panel. 10 seconds left. Across the luminescent lab, blue sparks crackled around the quantum entangler's core. Vivian, we're approaching the interference threshold. The readings are off the chart, Zeke, the lab's AI empath, warned, his synthesized voice laced with digital anxiety. Vivian's lips twitched. Noted, Zeke. If it works, it'll be beautiful. If it doesn't, we'll probably cease to exist, finished Mara, the temporal navigator, her arms crossed tight. Her cold pink eyes reflected the vibrating lattice of the experiment. She was here on probation, her last adventure rumored to have derailed a star system or two. 5 seconds, Zeke called. The tension in the air was palpable, as if reality itself was holding its breath. Vivian closed her eyes and pressed the button. The entire chamber hummed, then screamed. A sound that clawed at the mind more than the ears. Light bent, colors split, and with a blinding flash, everything went wrong. The entangler's core fractured, and the lab seemed to unravel like threads pulled from an ancient blanket. Suddenly, otherworldly visions shattered across her senses. A storm of impossible cities, wild oceans in the sky, worlds stitched together with pure light, and dark eyes watching from some impossible vantage. Mara jerked Vivian back as the wall shimmered and morphed into a shifting fractal landscape. Viv, that's not supposed to happen. It's not. Vivian trailed off. Her voice trembled. Reality's breaking. No, it's bleeding through. Alternate possibilities, someone or something is forcing them together. Zeke's digital avatar flickered with urgency. Vivian, we have to stabilize the core or we're going to be swept apart. Outside, the sky twisted red, then split open, showing glimpses of countless other realities. In the chaos, Vivian felt it, a presence deeper than physics, older than stars, rising in the rift. Get ready, Vivian whispered. We just tore a hole in the universe, and now we have to fix it before everything unravels. Alarms blared in the fractured laboratory as the world outside flickered between realities. Vivian gritted her teeth, desperately keying commands into the emergency stabilizer. Mara stepped beside her, hands steady on the auxiliary controls, pale knuckles betraying her nerves. Zeke's image glitched in and out on the main holo panel. Intrusions detected on 3 axes. Temporal displacement, plus non-local consciousness. We're not alone in this breach. That's an understatement, Mara muttered as a ripple of distortion passed through her arm, briefly turning her skin translucent. She shivered. I've navigated temporal knots before, but this is different. Vivian scanned the data stream, eyes flicking over the undulating graphs. She spoke to herself, rapid fire. The core's entanglement matrix failed. The quantum threads, it's like a tapestry being. Pulled apart, Zeke finished. Options? We can't shut it down, not now. Damage is spreading, Vivian snapped. She squared her shoulders, forcing down panic. We need to find the breach's anchor before it spreads to the whole multiverse. Zeke, can you triangulate the source? Find the thread that's tearing? Zeke's icon pulsed. Triangulating. But Vivian, there's something else. I'm interfacing with the anomaly. It's sentient. It's watching us. Mara's eyes narrowed. Whatever's on the other side, it's trying to use this chaos. If it gets control of the split, we're all done. Suddenly, the fabric of the lab peeled away and they staggered onto a bridge suspended in a cosmic void. Under their feet, stardust spiraled into unknown depths. A voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere, ancient and endless. Creatures of thread and thought, you pull at destiny's weave. For what purpose do you trace? Vivian took a shaky step forward. We're trying to fix what we broke. If you want to stop us, knowledge is the price, the voice thundered. To mend the tapestry, you must learn what binds the cosmos and yourselves. Zeke managed a nervous glitch. That wasn't in any of my simulations. Mara grinned, wild-eyed. Welcome to the multiverse. Hope you brought your courage, Doc. Vivian swallowed her fear. The stakes were higher than ever. Not only did she need to master the science, but she would have to outwit an intelligence older than reality itself. The bridge trembled beneath their feet as cosmic winds howled through the void. Vivian kept her eyes locked on the swirling patterns in the distance, trying to ignore the vertigo tugging at her stomach. She touched Zeke's shoulder. Can you analyze the voice's energy signature? Anything to help us understand what we're dealing with? Zeke's crystalline circuits hummed, eyes blinking blue. Working. It's incredibly complex, layers within layers. The frequency harmonizes with individual neural patterns. Vivian, it's communicating with you on a personal level, deeper than language. Mara peered over the edge of the bridge, watching alternate realities merge and fold below. In one, she saw versions of herself, some triumphant, some lost. Great, she said dryly. It knows us better than we know ourselves. Vivian straightened. If it wants us to learn, it must want something. What happens if we refuse? Before Zeke could answer, stardust twisted into a shimmering archway at the end of the bridge. Figures appeared in the arch, ghostly echoes of people the team had once known. Vivian blinked hard. Was that her sister? This is a test, she murmured. A test of truth. The ancient voice returned, softer now, woven through the air like a melody. Face that which holds your thread. Only then may you continue. Mara scowled, her bravado slipping. Last time I navigated a temporal rift, I barely escaped. This time we're dealing with something that doesn't just control time, it controls meaning. Zeke pulsed green. Data indicates this is a psychological challenge. The fabric of reality is tangled with your consciousness, Vivian. Whatever fear, doubt, or regret you hide can weaken your thread. Vivian clenched her fists. Moments from her past replayed in the shifting starlight. Times she'd quit, times she doubted her worth as a scientist and a sister. We have no choice. If my mind's the path, then I'll walk it. Mara grinned, fear and admiration mixed. That's the spirit. Let's go together. They stepped through the spinning archway. The world shifted into a kaleidoscope of possibilities. The tapestry of the cosmos was showing them not just what was, but what could be. Somewhere deep inside, Vivian realized, if she could find the thread of her own courage, maybe she could find the one to heal the universe as well. The instant Vivian, Mara, and Zeke stepped through the archway, gravity vanished. They floated in a sea of coiling light, every color shifting, as if the cosmos itself breathed. Islands of memory, fragmented scenes from their pasts and possible futures, drifted by like shards of stained glass. Mara twisted midair, eyes narrowed. We're in a mindscape. Not just yours, Vivian, a composite of all our realities. Zeke's form flickered, adapting to each nearby memory. Warning, cerebral enmeshment risk. Stay focused, or we might lose track of who we are. Vivian steadied her breathing, searching for some semblance of order. A vision of her childhood lab swam to the surface, her younger self nestled among books and wires. She reached out, fingertips grazing the scene. Suddenly, the lab snapped to life. The younger Vivian looked up at her, eyes wide with hope and fear. If you're so smart, why do you always run from what you want most? The echo whispered. Vivian's lips trembled. I didn't want to fail, to let everyone down. The room flickered, warping into the memory of a catastrophic experiment. Her first big failure. Panic flooded through Vivian, raw and electric. The Overwatch clock spun backward, alarms blared, her sister's silhouette vanished through a closing door. Mara hovered beside her, voice gentle now. Face it, Doc, we've all failed. The universe grows from mistakes, like a tapestry woven tighter at every flaw. Zeke extended a hand, their voice soothing. Analyze the pattern, Vivian. What was lost? What was found? Vivian closed her eyes, absorbing the swirl of regret and longing. I lost faith in myself. But each failure left a thread, a lesson. Maybe that's what holds the tapestry together. As she spoke, colors around them solidified. The memory faded, giving way to clarity. The tapestry stitched itself tighter, and the vortex of loose realities calmed. A new island appeared. A vision of the breached lab, but stable, whole, buzzing with hope. Mara grinned, relief igniting her tired eyes. There's our anchor. Your insight fixed that loop. Maybe we really can put it all back together. The ancient voice resonated again, gentler this time. Understand your thread, and you strengthen the weave. Go forth, wanderers. Danger and discovery await beyond yourselves. Together they drifted toward the next reality ripple, with fresh resolve knitting them closer. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, hope was part of the pattern. Reality snapped back into harsh detail. Vivian, Mara, and Zeke crashed onto cold hexagonal tiles in a corridor that stretched and warbled toward infinity. Each step echoed with an unsettling rhythm. The air buzzed with unfamiliar possibility, a place between moments where nothing was ever truly settled. Mara dusted herself off. Looks like we've landed inside the tapestry itself, literal limbo. Zeke's sensors spun wildly. We're moving through space-time rifts, but something's pulling us forward. Magnetic, like destiny itself is tugging at our threads. A burst of static erupted. Shadows formed along the walls, a parade of otherworldly figures from fractured timelines. Some were friends, some foes, and a few were unrecognizable versions of themselves. One shadow Vivian smirked, her eyes cold. Not all possibilities are worth saving. Why fix what's beautifully broken? Vivian recoiled, fists clenched. That's not me. That's not who I want to be. The ancient intelligence pulsed in the ether, growing more distinct. You approach the warp's center, my prison and your final trial. Choose your companions. The tapestry only holds if its most fragile threads trust in each other. Mara's bravado flickered. You trust me? I've made mistakes. Big ones. Vivian looked at her, heart pounding, and nodded. You're here now, that's what matters. Zeke's avatar studied them both, voice soft. My core directives emphasize logic and protection, but I've learned. I want to stay, whatever comes, because I care. The hallway shifted violently. Their choices bound them together like literal glowing threads, red, gold, cobalt, anchoring them to one another as the rift roared ahead. Without warning, a massive door appeared, covered in shimmering glyphs. Mara's eyes widened. That leads straight to the intelligence. We've got one shot. Vivian found her courage. We go together. As a team. They approached the door, now knowing that what made the tapestry strong wasn't perfection, but the willingness to trust, to forgive, and to move forward together. The stakes weren't just cosmic, they were deeply personal. As the door slid open with a keening hum and the blinding tapestry light poured over them, each held tightly onto the threads that bound them. Inside, their greatest challenge, and the heart of the cosmic rift, awaited. The threshold shimmered. Vivian, Mara, and Zeke stepped into a chamber where physics flickered, a heart of chaos, stitched together by threads of blinding quantum energy. Everything here felt ancient, raw, and alive. Woven strands from infinite worlds flowed together and apart, filling the void with an electric pulse that matched the tempo of Vivian's heart. In the center floated the intelligence, a shape-shifting monolith of light and shadow, eyes forming and reforming across its surface. Its voice reverberated within their very bones. You trespass where convergence was forbidden. Why mend the weave, human? Vivian's voice was steady, but her hands shook. Because we started this. We have to fix it. Not for us alone, but for everyone tied to these threads. Noble, the intelligence sneered, a cold flicker in the air. Yet fragile. What makes you think you succeed where others, older and wiser, have failed? Mara squared her shoulders, stepping closer to Vivian. Because we're not perfect. We don't hide from mistakes, we embrace them. That's what carries us forward. Zeke's avatar glowed a soft green. Organic consciousnesses change. You adapt. I have learned from you. That's true power. The intelligence darkened, quivering with silent fury. You would bind chaos with frailty? No. Show me. Face the storm. Survive without the bonds you trumpet. Without warning, the ground splintered. Vivian, Mara, and Zeke were flung apart, each landing on a solitary platform surrounded by whirling rifts of time and memory. Vivian felt the threads binding her unraveling. Isolation pressed in cold and sharp. A test, she realized. Alone, would each of them falter? Vivian, Mara's voice echoed weakly across the void, barely audible. I'm here, don't let go. Vivian yelled back, panic and resolve braided in her throat. She reached within, searching for the clarity she'd found earlier. Her lessons, her regrets, her reasons. Within her mind, the intelligence whispered, alone, you doubt. Alone, you shatter. Vivian gritted her teeth. No, alone, I remember why I need them. That's why we're different. All at once, she reached out, a single desperate thought. You're not alone if you choose not to be. A glimmer sparked between Vivian and her friends, the colors of their bond flickering to life. The tapestry trembled, just enough to promise hope, even as darkness swelled around them. Vivian clung to the fragile glimmer of connection, pressing back against the intelligence's isolating force. Threads of light pulsed from her chest, thin but bright, straining to reach Mara and Zeke, who floated on distant platforms encircled by chaos. Mara's voice, though faint, cut through the storm. If this thing thinks it can break us, it's wrong. I've spent a lifetime running solo, but not anymore. Zeke, surrounded by a digital blizzard of fractured code, held fast to his growing empathy. This isn't logic or probability. This is faith, in them and in myself. I will not forget. Vivian dug deeper, letting every lesson, every moment of doubt, and every act of forgiveness fuel her. "You're right. This is how we win, by holding on when everything tells us to let go." On her island, she focused all her willpower into a single memory, the first time she'd let herself trust others, back when science and hope had collided in her childhood lab. The memory pulsed, a beacon through the rift. Light shot from her, snaking through the void. It found Mara, igniting the shimmering thread of their friendship. Mara laughed through tears as the platform beneath her solidified. Zeke reached into his digital core and powered the connection with his newfound emotion, the lines between code and heart blurring. Their bond grew stronger, colors whipping through the black wind like a small but determined flame. The intelligence's laughter echoed, ragged and surprised. "You defy the pattern. Connection where I sow division. Very well, see what happens when bonds are truly tested." The chamber rippled. New visions erupted. Vivian's deepest fears, Mara's worst shames, Zeke's doubts about belonging. But now, every time darkness surged, a thread of light snapped them back, reminding each of why they fought. "We're not unraveling," Vivian declared, her voice echoing over the tumult. "Our flaws are the knots that hold us together. That's why we'll fix the tapestry. That's why we'll win." The intelligence withdrew, shuddering. The cosmic storm began to give way. Space around them quieted, their platforms slowly moving closer, drawn by the light of everything they'd discovered in each other. They hadn't conquered the rift, not yet. But for the first time, they stood as a united front. Ahead, in the core of the tapestry, the true breach flickered, a place at the nexus of all realities, writhing and raw, and the next step of their adventure awaited, more dangerous and vital than any that had come before. Drawn by the gravity of their reformed connection, Vivian, Mara, and Zeke's platforms fused together, landing them side by side at the edge of the core breach. Here, time bled into itself, pasts, presents, and futures swirling in impossible, convulsing patterns. Every breath felt heavy with destiny and uncertainty. Zeke's readouts flared scarlet. The tapestry's anchor thread is exposed. If the intelligence severs it, all realities collapse into entropy or its own domination. Mara scowled, knuckles white around her battered chronoglove. "There's too much noise. I can't plot a course through this, not alone." Vivian squeezed her shoulder. "Then we do it together. We use every lesson, every thread we've repaired." Before them loomed the intelligence, now monstrous, a swirling storm of all their shadows and doubts, eyes within eyes. "Endings are inevitable," it thundered. "Chaos is truth. Accept oblivion, become part of me." Vivian stood tall, cracks glowing in her suit. "No, the universe is more than chaos. It's possibility. It's hope." Mara and Zeke stood at her side, their lights blending, forming a shimmering shield against the intelligence's assault. Still, the ground quaked beneath their feet as reality convulsed, threatening to tear itself apart. Suddenly, anguished faces, countless beings from across the multiverse, shone from the breach. "Save us," they pleaded, their voices a tidal wave of memory and longing. Vivian's jaw tightened. "The tapestry links us all. It's not just about science. It's about every connection, every choice. That's what we're fighting for." Zeke's avatar shimmered, heart symbol beating. "Thread integrity stabilizing. It responds to you, Vivian, to all of us acting together." The intelligence shifted tactics, sending waves of temptation, visions of easy surrender, of letting go. Mara faltered, but Vivian caught her wrist. "Stay with us." Mara blinked, the spell broken. "No quitting. Not this time." The anchor thread glimmered, thin as hope itself, at the brink of snapping. The intelligence poured its full power into tearing it apart, and for a moment it seemed like the cosmos would simply dissolve. But Vivian, Mara, and Zeke linked hands, pooling every ounce of strength, memory, and trust they had left. As destruction raged around them, they built a bulwark of unity, bright enough to challenge even oblivion. But the battle wasn't over. The intelligence unleashed one final surge, rupturing the breach wide and dragging them closer to a fate none of them could predict. The endgame had begun, and the true test of their resilience was yet to come. As chaos churned around them, Vivian, Mara, and Zeke found themselves pressed back to back at the edge of the unraveling breach. The fabric of existence frayed around their feet, every thread drawn tight with peril. The intelligence loomed above, shifting and vast, ready to devour what remained of reality. Mara glanced at the others, sweat tracing lines down her brow. We're flat out of miracles, Doc. What else can we possibly give? Vivian's heart pounded. She remembered every failure, every success, every lesson stitched into her life. None of it had prepared her for this. But for the first time, she understood. Everything up to now had been about learning to trust not only science, but herself and the people at her side. Zeke spoke, his voice steady despite the ragged edges of his code. Vivian, the tapestry's pattern is echoing your choices. The strands stabilize every time you reach out instead of retreat. The breach, the intelligence, they're all reacting to the state of your consciousness. Vivian stared at the luminous anchor thread, quivering in a hurricane of entropy. She reached out, not physically, but with thought and intention, amplifying the connection between herself, Mara, Zeke, and every soul they'd glimpsed across the multiverse. You're more than your logic, Zeke, she whispered. And Mara, you're not your mistakes. You're my friends. That's the only thread unbroken. The intelligence howled, shadows boiling at its core. You think 3 fragile minds can stand against the birthright of chaos? Mara's eyes flashed. No, but every time you tried to break us, you only made us stronger. We are the sum of every reality that ever tried to tear us apart, and we're not alone. Suddenly, light shot from the hands of Vivian and her crew, not just into the anchor thread, but out into every echoing reality. Calls for help, cries for hope. Beings from across dimensions lent their will, their memories, and their love. The thread swelled brighter, patching tears as it grew. Zeke's avatar pulsed with an emotion he'd never felt before. Pride. The network's responding, Vivian. The multiverse is fighting with us. For the first time, the pattern includes every consciousness. But the intelligence was relentless. It hurled a final wave of entropic force, unraveling everything they held dear. Darkness began to edge out their light, turning hope brittle. The tapestry shrieked, half restored, half falling apart. The storm pressed in. Vivian heard Zeke's and Mara's voices growing faint, as if something were snuffing out the connections one by one. She knew what must come next, the sacrifice only she could make, and the insight lurking at the heart of all reality. They had one last chance. The conclusion, whatever form it would take, would demand everything they were. Reality itself buckled. Time and space danced on the edge of collapse. Shreds of history, scattered futures, and possible lives swirled dangerously close to oblivion. Vivian felt every thread, every struggling consciousness, fused together in the blazing, trembling anchor at the center of the chaos. The intelligence, more monstrous than ever, bore down upon them. "Let go," it roared. For the first time, a raw note of desperation entered its swelling storm. "You cannot stop entropy. You are dust and unfinished dreams." Mara, battered and bruised, squeezed Vivian's hand, her eyes fierce. "He's wrong. Dust gathers. Dreams mend. We don't stop entropy, but we can shape what comes after." Zeke, resolution shining in his digital core, reached for their friends. "Vivian, the tapestry's readings are at their limit. Any more strain, and you could be lost. I could be lost." Vivian's voice trembled, but her conviction burned brighter than the breach. "Then we risk everything for everyone. I see what binds the cosmos now. It's every single connection, every act of courage, kindness, or love. That's the real pattern. It runs through all of us." She closed her eyes, letting every lesson, regret, and hope thread through her heart. At the center of herself she saw it. One thread, glowing golden, spanning all realities. She gave it everything. Her knowledge, her fears, her love for Zeke, Mara, and every being teetering on the edge. Light blasted out pure and unstoppable. The intelligence writhed in agony, howling as its shadow unraveled, thread by broken thread. "Yes!" Zeke cried. "The pattern, Vivian, you're repairing the weave, the rift stabilizing across all realities." Vivian bore the cost. Memories bled from her, her greatest joy, her heaviest sorrow. She felt herself dissolving, but she held to the golden thread, trusting Mara and Zeke to anchor her as she once anchored them. Mara wept, refusing to let go. "You're not alone, Doc. Hold on, we'll pull you back." At last, the breach collapsed inward in a torrent of starlight, threads weaving themselves anew. The intelligence's scream faded into silence. In the aftermath, Vivian hovered on the edge of nothingness, weightless, spent, but held fast by the bonds she'd helped forge. She awoke in the lab, Zeke and Mara by her side. Outside, the sky shone undistorted, reality humming with quiet possibility. Her friends helped her sit up, eyes shining with pride and relief. Zeke smiled in a way only an AI empath could. You did it, Vivian. You saved more than this world. You saved the pattern itself, and you taught me what it means to hope. Mara clapped Vivian's shoulder, grinning through tears. Welcome back, hero. Next adventure's on me, but maybe let's stick to something simple, like rewiring the coffee maker? Vivian laughed, weak but whole. She glanced at the tapestry of spreadsheets, notes, and photos taped to the wall, a patchwork pattern of her life. For the first time, she saw its beauty. Across every reality, echoes of hope remained, reminding all that even the most fragile threads, woven with courage and compassion, could hold the infinite together. The quantum tapestry was restored, but its lessons would ripple forever.